for being able to enjoy this beautiful lands where we can work, live, and study, and where Indigenous and non-Indigenous students come together with faculty and staff to enjoy this beautiful space. So today we're going to be having two of my favorite colleagues from the international admissions team. It's Kanae and Russell. They're both advisors at the international admissions team, and they will be sharing with us how to apply as an international student for one of our programs, one or two or more programs, depending on where your decision is. So I would like to give the floor to Kanae and Russell, and please feel free to share your questions in the chat box, and then at the end of the session, we will do our best to answer those questions. Thank you, and welcome, Russell and Kanae.
Hey, thank you so much, Ariadna. Just checking, Ariadna, if you're still on, or can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. So, hello everyone. As Ariadna says, it's almost 9 a.m. here on the west coast of Canada. And so I want to say good morning, but I understand that people are joining us from different regions and different time zones around the world. So just to give us all a better sense of who's in the room and who's with us today, if you feel like it, in the chat box, please feel free to type where you are joining us from. I'd like to give 30 seconds just to see who's in the room. Okay, we've got Victoria, we've got India, Uruguay, and Bangladesh. Wow. Bogota and Colombia, Cyprus, Mexico, and South Korea, and from Mexico, from Turkey, and from Kenya. Oh my goodness. And Ecuador. Oh, we have a lot of our Latin American friends joining us here today. And from Peru as well, and from India. Oh my goodness, seeing all of these places. It's from the Philippines, fantastic. Seeing all of these places really makes me want to travel. But I mean, of course, given the current situation, things are the way they are, and we are doing our presentation via video as a result. So thank you very much for posting all of that. That's a really diverse group. Thank you for joining us today. As my colleague Ariadna mentioned, my name is Russell, and today, along with my colleague Kanae and I, we will be talking in general terms about things to know in order to apply as an international student to a program at Royal Roads University. Now, just to give you a very quick outline of our presentation, sorry. First, I will be talking about the things that you need to do in order to apply. So this will involve doing your research, preparing the documents that are required for the application, and then actually submitting the application. After that, number two, my colleague Kanae will be talking about the do's and don'ts when it comes to submitting the documents for your application. And then just to wrap things up, I will share some final thoughts about the application process before proceeding to our Q&A, at which time we'll be trying to answer some of your questions. Now, I do want to mention that while we have tried to simplify things as much as possible, the application process is, well, a process. So there will be a lot of detailed information, but do not worry. All of the information that we'll be presenting here can be found on our website at www.royalroads.ca. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always email us to ask, and we will provide our email address towards the end of this presentation. So let's get to it. What exactly is the very first thing that you need to do in order to apply at Royal Roads? So step one is to do your research about the program. Now, this may seem fairly obvious, but As somebody who has worked in the International Admissions Office for the last few years, it's really quite surprising how many people submit applications without really knowing what the program is about and what the requirements are to be able to join the program. Most people have an idea of what they want to study, but whether you do or you don't, I would recommend looking at what programs are available at Royal Roads. And the quickest way to do this would be to go to the search engine of your choice and do a keyword search using Royal Roads University programs. And you'll probably see something like this. You will inevitably find the page on our website that includes all of the programs that Royal Roads has to offer. And so the benefit of doing this is that, one, you get to see all of the programs that we have. And second, you can find a program that truly fits your area of interest for study or something that matches your professional development goals. So just as an example, you may be interested in business, and so you may be drawn to programs automatically like the MBA or the Master of Global Management. But if you look through all of the programs that are listed, you may discover a new program like the Master of Global Leadership and find upon reading that it actually fits and aligns more with your career and personal development goals. So that is the benefit of taking a look at what programs are available. So the first step in doing your research is something that I encourage you to do. Explore. Explore the offerings that we have. Now, let's say that you have found a program that you are interested in, and you click on that page to find out the information about it. There are 3 things to note when looking at program information. So these are the bullet points on the slide right now. Things to check. First is, what are the admission requirements? And admission requirements basically mean what are the qualifications that you're supposed to have to be eligible to join the program. Now, every program has different admission requirements, but just to give an example, in order to be considered for admission to, let's say, the Master of Arts in International or Intercultural and International Communication, you will need to have successfully completed a bachelor's degree or the equivalent. So this is an admission requirement. And if you don't have this, normally you may not be eligible for admission. And there are a few exceptions, of course. Conversely, if you were applying for a different program like the Doctor of Social Sciences, the admission requirements will be different again. So it is very important that you check. So the second bullet point, how is the program delivered? It's also very important to know this. So at Royal Roads, programs can be delivered on campus. So that means that all of the classes are primarily delivered here at our campus in Victoria, Canada. Programs can be delivered fully online, and that's pretty self-explanatory. And lastly, programs can also be delivered in a blended format. And what we mean by blended format is that the classes that you will have, the courses in the program, those will be delivered primarily online, mainly, but for some classes, you will be expected to come to campus to attend short-term residencies. And these can last from, maybe 1 to 3 weeks. So these are fairly intense sessions. So a blended delivery is mostly online with some on-campus components, hence blended. Simply as a side note, the majority of our international students tend to prefer programs that are delivered on campus. And the reason for this is that on-campus programs, by taking them, you may be eligible to apply for a work permit after graduation. For more information about this, we do recommend writing to us. Again, our email address will be presented to you at the end of this presentation. And so the last thing that you will need to check, and that's the third bullet point on this current slide, is to find out what documents you will need to submit. Again, each program has different document submission requirements, but some commonly required documents include your academic transcripts or your mark sheets for your previous studies, a copy of your resume, a statement of intent, and your letters of reference. The key point that I do want to mention here is that, again, every program has different requirements, so it is important to do your research and check. As an example, the Doctor of Business Administration program will have very different document submission requirements from, let's say, a bachelor's program in tourism. So please check. Okay. Step 2, how to apply. After doing your research about the program and finding out what you essentially need to have in order to apply, the next step is to, well, basically submit an application. Create an application in our system. And you can do this by going to this website right here, www.royalroads.ca/apply-now. Now, unfortunately, due to time constraints, I am not able to go into step-by-step detail on what to do at this page, but the links are fairly self-explanatory. And again, if you have any difficulties, you can always email us. Basically, the point of creating this application is so that we have a record of you in our system with pertinent information that will help us reach out to you so that we can help you, provide you with contact information. We can tell you about the different requirements for every program. And more importantly, this will give you an application ID number that will make it easier for us to track your application and assist you if you have any questions. So step 1, do your research, and step 2, apply. And lastly, step 3 is to submit the required documents for your application. And you can send them by email to international.admissions@royalroads.ca. Now, at this stage, I would strongly urge you to gather all of the necessary documents and submit them in one email, as opposed to, for example, sending your resume in one email, and then later down the road, sending your transcripts in another email, and then your statement a month later. If you submit all of the required documents in one email, it will allow us to process your documents faster. And this also helps us because, as you can imagine, we are dealing with hundreds of active applications at any given time, and we do get a lot of emails every day. So it's easier for us to process applications when everything is in order. Please be sure to include your full name when emailing us, or better yet, your application ID number, which you would have received from creating the application in our system. And then after submitting the documents, give us some time. We will be able to take a look, and we will be reaching out to you if we have any questions or to give you an update on the status of your application. Okay. Now, at this point, I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Kanae, who will talk to you in further detail about the do's and don'ts, specifically do's and don'ts for your application.
Thank you, Russell. Hi, good morning. My name is Kanae. I'm one of the international admission advisors. So let's talk about the top 3 do's and don'ts when you submit your documents. Tip number 1, if in your resume, be sure to provide the full name of the company you worked for, the start and end dates for when you worked at the organization, include the month and year. For example, May 2018 to October 2020, including if it was full-time or part-time, and how many hours you worked per week will also be helpful. Your job title and 3 to 5 bullet points describing your duties and responsibilities. For example, if you had a managerial position, include what you were responsible for, or if there was anything you achieved in that position. Any leadership experience will be great to include in your resume. And you can also add your strengths, not only technical skills, but soft skills, and relevant volunteer experience will be great. If the organization has an official website, it would be also helpful to add that information. We do recommend to check the spelling and formatting your resume. Take the time to correct and edit. And what we don't recommend is sending pages and pages of every project you worked on with paragraph description of what you did in size 8 font. Next slide, please. Tip number 2, in your statement of intent, be sure to follow the guidelines provided in the program's application requirements page. Some programs may ask you to provide a general statement about why you're applying, and other programs may ask you require answers to specific questions and formatting in specific lengths. The reviewers do check to see if you are able to follow the given instructions, so please make sure to follow the guidelines. We do also recommend checking the spelling and grammar of your statement. It is very easy to tell if an error is because English is not your native language, in which case we do make allowance, or if the errors are just because of your carelessness. So please proofread and correct errors. Please do not plagiarize. The statements are an opportunity for us to get to know you and your motivations for wanting to join the programs and your personal story. This does not work if you just copy the statement from the website somewhere and paste it into your statement. Even if the sentence describes exactly what you want to say, taking someone's idea or work and using it as your own is considered as a plagiarism. Changing some of the words from the sentence and using them as your own is still plagiarism. So for one thing, copied statements do not tell us anything about you. And secondly, this would be considered cheating, and it will result in an automatic denial of your application. So please take the time to write everything in your own words, and we would much prefer an honest statement over perfect but non-original ones. Please move on to the next slide, please. So tip number 3, if your program requires letter of reference, we recommend providing 1 academic reference and 1 professional reference. By academic reference, we mean a letter provided by one of your instructors at the school that you attended previously. A professional reference would be a letter provided by one of your supervisors at your current or previous job. If this combination is not possible, we may be able to accept 2 academic references or 2 professional references. Please do provide references that we are able to verify. It is best that we are able to reach them by email if we have any questions. The reference letters must be signed and dated by the author within 6 months and have at least 1 contact information. If they are sending their reference letters by email, it must come from their corporate domain email or institutional email that we can verify. We do not accept emailed reference letters from public domains such as Gmail and Yahoo email. And please do not provide references from people who may have an obvious bias, such as a family member or your best friend. And one more thing, when you submit your official transcript, it has to be attested by a registrar's office and has to be placed in an institution's official sealed envelope. Please visit our document submission page for more information. Over to you, Russell.
Okay, thank you very much, Kanae. So that was a lot of information that we both know. When Kanae and I were talking about this presentation, we realized that this is, this may be considered a giant wave of things to remember, things to do, and things not to do. So again, as I said at the beginning of this presentation, don't worry. All of this information is on our website. And if you have any questions, and if you wanted to double check whether you should do something or not do something, or if you were wanting to find out which documents specifically you wanted to submit, please reach out and we will be more than happy to help you. As a final thought, just when it comes to submitting your application, the main advice that we would like to give any of our applicants, whether it's domestic or international, is to be professional in how you present yourself. This is because, as you may know, the saying, first impressions tend to be the lasting ones. And when you submit your application, so that's when you send us an email, when you reach out and ask questions, this would be the first impression that we will have of you as an institution. All applications at Royal Roads for their programs are adjudicated on a holistic basis, which means we take into consideration everything, including communication that you send to us. So as you can imagine, emails that come in looking very professional with documents that are formatted and clean, and with no spelling errors and things like that, those will definitely be considered more favorably than a document which may look sloppy. So my advice would be always be professional in how you present yourself and in how you interact, especially as Royal Roads is, like any other university out there, an institution of higher learning. So applications that follow the guidelines that we presented will get processed faster, or they tend to anyway. I mean, it's just cleaner, right? It's faster for us to process, and would also, generally speaking, have a higher chance of being given admission. So all that being said, just want to wish you good luck with your applications. Thank you again for attending, and we would like to open the floor for any questions.
Thank you so much, Russell and Kanae, for this amazing presentation and for all the pieces of advice you've given us. That's very, very useful. And we have many questions.
We'll try our best.
Yes, and we will start with the first one. And it says, what is the average admission application processing time?
Kanae, do you want to answer that, or should
yes. I? Oh, yes, I can definitely answer. So at this point, it takes 10 to 12 weeks for processing, reviewing applications. After you completed all your submitting all your required documents. So it's 10 to 12 weeks right now. 10 to 12 weeks. Thank you so much. So the second question I have here is, once you submit your documents, how long does it take to change the status to update it on the system international admissions has?
Okay, I can take that one. Yes, so that's a very good question. It actually does depend. Primarily right now, we are affected by significant email volumes. So as you can imagine, with the pandemic, all our emails have skyrocketed. So when you send in your documents by email, it's not as if we don't have an automatic system that just automatically scans it and uploads it and marks it in your application portal as received or not. We do take a look at them one by one, and we do check one by one. So the benefit of us doing that is that when we take a look at your documents individually, we are able to assess and give you information whether if a document is okay, or if we have any questions, or if things need to be updated. Now, the unfortunate side to that is that it does take a little bit longer, and it does depend. So last I heard from our associates who are in charge of processing this, we were at 10 business days, just because of sheer volume. There's just that many applications coming in and documents coming in. But at this point, I mean, I can't give an exact number. If you haven't heard from us within that time period, please feel free to check in. That being said, we do try to process them as quickly as possible. It's just with all things moving to online and by email, our volumes have gone up. So we do thank you for your patience with that.
It's also important to bear in mind that some documents come by regular mail, right?
Yes.
Physical mail. So someone has to go. Now we're all working from home. and someone has to go to the office, open those envelopes and upload that in the system. So it takes a bit longer now, right? Now we're not all the time in the office, we're at home.
Yes, we do have
Yes.
limitations now as a result of our current setup with the global pandemic. We are trying, and you will find that all educational institutions around the world are facing similar challenges, but that is unfortunately the reality of the situation. But if you have submitted it and you have received an email, usually when you submit something to us by email, you will get an automated response, which will tell you sort of our processing time. Then that means we have it. It's in the queue for processing. We will definitely get to it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Russell. So the other question we have is, how can a student track the application process?
So when you log into my admin, it says which document was received or which documents are not received. So as Russell mentioned earlier, we are not like right on time to process all the document. There are delays, but if you check my admin, then you can see if the application is complete or it's under review process. So yeah, that will tell you which process your applications at.
Yes. So when I mentioned earlier about creating an application in our system and logging onto that website, so throughout the application process, you are able to check in and log in to see your application. And on the screen, you will see a list of the documents that are required for your program and whether or not we have received them. And also at the main stages of the application process. So for example, when we have received all of your documents and have marked them as complete, you will receive an email from our system. When your application goes into official review by the heads of the program, you will also get another email. And of course, when, hopefully if we are able to send you an offer of admission, you will get another email. So if you want to check the individual status of your application, we do recommend logging onto the application portal, but also making sure that you check your emails regularly, as you will receive emails at the major sort of milestones throughout the application process. And of course, you can check with us at any given time, and we're happy to update you.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Kanae. Now, the other question is very specific to India. So this student says, it is common in India to hold a 3-year degree as opposed to be a 4-year one. And the student holds a degree in business administration and has 6 years of work experience. Can he or she be eligible to apply for a master's degree?
I'll take this one. So yes, absolutely, you are able to apply. So when it comes to submitting your application, we do have a process called credential evaluation. It is part of the review process for a lot of our international applicants, in which we assess the educational background and credentials of an individual applicant. So as you can imagine, educational systems differ from around the world. And so what the credential evaluation process does is for us to figure out what is the Canadian equivalency of the background that you have. So in some cases, this depends. Every situation tends to be different, and every applicant has a different story to them. But in some cases, somebody who has a 3-year education, once we review, what they studied, their institution, their grades, their qualifications, we may be able to equate it to a 4-year degree at an equivalent Canadian institution. So in which case they would be quite eligible. At the same time, if, for example, after our review, we find that, no, this actually is closer to a 3-year degree, then we take a look at other aspects of your application. As I mentioned earlier, all applications are reviewed holistically. So we take a look at things like your work experience as well. There are standard sort of application requirements, but we also have flexible admission guidelines. So for flexible admissions, we sometimes take a look or put more weight on a person's work experience over their education. So we do assess every individual's applications, on an individual basis. and just to see. So we do take our time in looking at whether or not you would be qualified and a good fit for a program. So the downside is it might take us a little bit longer, but the plus side is that we tend to offer more opportunities for individuals to upgrade and improve themselves. So it's a balance that we try to maintain.
Okay, wonderful. We have time for a couple more questions, and then we will resume this session and start with the next one. But let's dive into the next question. So the other one is, can I send a link of Google Drive, or do we have to attach the documents in the email to send the documents to international admissions? Do you accept a link to Google Drive?
I would probably recommend not doing it via Google Drive, if only for security reasons. I guess it's not so much an admissions call, but it's more of an IT issue. And that sometimes we have encountered issues with Google Drive. I mean, that's not to say that we haven't encountered issues with document attachments as well, but by and large, our systems are equipped to be able to scan through attachments and things like that. So I would recommend sending your documents as attachments, either as PDF or with your statements as editable Word documents, so we are able to assess them. We would prefer those over links to Google Drive or to similar services out there.
Perfect. The next question, what happens if the person who is my professional reference has retired from the organization that we used to work together for? They will not have access to their official domain. Will you still accept that person as a professional reference? And another question linked to that one, would you accept 2 professional references from the same organization?
Kanae, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Yes, we do accept reference letters who have already retired. They can send physical reference letters signed by the author. It doesn't have to come in the institutional or corporate domain email address. They can just write the letter, and it doesn't have to be on the letterhead as well if they don't have access to the previous company anymore. And we accept physical hard copy of reference letters. And we recommend applicants to submit 1 academic reference and a corporate reference. But if that's not possible, then we do accept reference letters from the corporate for the work from the same company as well.
So you would accept 2 references from the same organization?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes. But we recommend to have a different variety of recommendation letters.
Yeah, preferably from a different organization,
yes.
but if not, then from the same one.
Yes.
Maybe if that person only worked for 1 company. So
yes, definitely that's possible. Yes. So we do accept that.
It depends on every case, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so there's one last question, and it says, I've had an evaluation done by the Comparative Education Service of the University of Toronto. Is that acceptable for Railroads University?
And I can take that one. So at this particular stage, I would say no, because it's not a service that we currently recognize as something that we can accept. If you take a look on our website, there are basically 3 sort of credential evaluation services that we are able to accept. The first one being, of course, our own internal one. The second one is done by WES, and the third one is by an institution, ICES. So those are the 3 credential evaluation sort of services or processes that we are able to accept. Now, with your application and the credential evaluation being done by the University of Toronto, we can certainly take a look to see if we might be able to accept it. But as it currently stands, sort of our official line on it would be no, unfortunately. But we can take a look and we can assess on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, there are more questions coming. I think I'm gonna do the last one. It's like, is it GMAT require a Railroads University?
I'm sorry, was that the GMAT?
GMAT, GMAT.
GMAT. Okay, so for our programs, no, the GMAT is not required. There are some instances when having a GMAT may be beneficial for you. So one example is the Master of Global Management program, in which case having high GMAT scores may exempt you from certain conditions, such as accounting, that may be assigned to you. But by and large, our programs do not require the GMAT. All of our program requirements you can find on our website. And yeah, you can take a look just to verify.
Perfect. And there is another one. Can I make application fee through bank transfer, since I do not have access to a credit card or other methods you listed?
I can take this one. So for the international payment, we are using Pay My Tuition, and maybe you can we can type in the chat box. So we by using Pay My Tuition, we can use a better rate, and a student can benefit from better rate and using bank transfer, credit card, and so different all other sorts of payment method.
Okay, wonderful.
Mhm.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Russell. Thank you so much, Kanae, for dedicating this time to give tips to international students that want to apply to Railroads University programs. Is there any last piece of advice you would give to the students?
Kanae, do you want to go first?
Yes. So I think students, I just look for original story, what they want to do in the program once they are admitted, and that what they want to achieve in the future. I really like to hear the original story from the students.
Wonderful. So
yeah.
say your personal story.
Yes.
Tell us where you come from, what you've done,
Yeah.
what your journey is, what you would like to accomplish with your degree. Tell us all that.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kanae. What about you, Russell?
Yes, so absolutely, I definitely agree with Kanae and what she said. We want to hear from you as an individual. As you can imagine, we get hundreds of applications and we have to read through all of them, right? And so the more original stories, the more stories we hear that tell us about who you are, the more we feel that we can better fit you into a program, right? Other than that, I would just say, please take the time to prepare. So international education is a process, and it's a process that involves not only us at the university, but if you are coming in from a different country, of course, you have other things to consider, like the visa application process, travel requirements, right now, if there are any border restrictions and things like that. So do take the time. International education and applying to, programs at another country, it's not something that can be done overnight, at least not one, at least I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. So take the time, do your research, and be flexible. And what we have found is that students who have planned, who have made sure that all of their documents are in order, have had the smoothest process when coming to our institution, and minimal stress. And then once they start their program here, that's the next step of their challenge. So we do encourage you guys to apply. And if you have any questions as well, please feel free to write to us. And yes, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for the interest. And now we look forward to receiving applications and meet you on campus in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kanae. Thank you, Russell. And on behalf of all the students and all the applicants, we want to thank you for the time and effort you put into every single application. And I know it's a lot of work. It's very intense reading all these documents. But we really thank you, because you make possible that when the student comes to the program, they join an amazing community of students, and they can share their studies and their experience. So thank you for all your work, and thank you for joining this session and giving those wonderful tips. And to you that are still in the session, do not leave the session, because now we have another one about working in Canada, which is very helpful too. So thank you again, Kanae and Russell, and you stay online. Do not leave, because we're going to give you more information about Royal Roads University and about working in Canada while you are a student. Thank you, Kanae and Russell, again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.